You can find me mostly on Facebook as Lillian Reekie, parenting strategist, or there's my website there, parentsupportnetwork.com.au. I look forward to connecting with anybody who feels aligned today.
Perfect. So let's start from the genesis of this and let us know, how did you get involved in this and why?
Now, how many hours did you say we had? So
we have all the time in the world. Remember, it's morning where you are, so I have all the entire morning.
I'm a teacher by profession. I'm a parent of two now adult sons. So my eldest son is 37. My youngest son is 30. And my youngest son, my eldest son was a typical kid, well-behaved, compliant, cooperative, good kid, didn't have any challenges with him. Child number 2 comes along with husband number 2, by the way. My second son was born and came into this world angry. He really was. He was angry from the moment he could start communicating. Even before he was talking, he showed, anger, and he was oppositional, and he was defiant. And by the time he was a little toddler, he was uncooperative. He was a very challenging little boy, really, really challenging. I already had a huge interest in holistic health and have been on that path for a long time. And, we already practice fairly healthy practices, although we did learn a lot more on this journey. And when my son was 3.5 years old, it was evident that things were not kind of progressing as you would hope as a parent. Like, he really was over the top. And we originally, when I went back to work, he went into childcare, and the childcare centres absolutely struggled with him because of his defiance, because of his hyperactivity, because of his sometimes aggression, and the nature. And he was just a challenging child. He was cute and adorable, but he was also really challenging. And at 3.5 years old, in his 4th childcare centre, so he went to 5 childcare centres because over less than 2 years, because basically the carers could not deal with him. Either the carers couldn't deal with him, or the parents of other children put pressure on the carers there to get rid of him because they didn't want him around their children. So that was really hard for me as a parent. I'm a good parent. I'm a positive person. I'm a good person, a good person all round. And it was really challenging for me to hear this. And then at age 3.5, one of the childcare centres brought in a child psychologist who, in her wisdom, viewed him for the day, supposedly, and diagnosed him initially with childhood depression, which I thought was interesting because I thought, if anybody's depressed here, it's the mother. But anyway, he was diagnosed with childhood depression. And can you believe, Terrain, he just turned 4 when the official diagnosis came in, and they recommended medicating him with antidepressants as a 4-year-old, just 4. He was then diagnosed further by a whole myriad of, doctors and pediatricians and psychologists and psychiatrists with ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, and ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, I'm not into labels. If I knew then what I know now, I would never have even gone down that path, because I don't think that we need to be diagnosing. These children do not have disorders, but that's another whole story. But that was our journey 25 years ago. So I never woke up one day and said, I might become a parenting strategist and a parenting coach and write 6 books about parenting. I never thought about that. But because of our journey with our son, the universe, took me on this path of discovery with him and the journey that we had with him. So it's now a topic, and we've had quite a roller coaster journey, as you'll hear as we explore this story a little bit more, where particularly the years 3 to 5 were very challenging, and then 13 to 15, 10x challenging. So it's been quite a journey.
I know for me, growing up, I grew up with my mother and my father, and I was just defensive because I just felt that no one wanted me around, right? But my grandmother is such an inspirational figure to me, and my childhood wasn't easy as well. And I could just imagine that if someone, depending on the situation, similar to what you're describing, if I was medicated or if I was maybe viewed differently, how much different I would have been as a person today
Absolutely.
versus how I am now. Looking back, did that cross your mind thinking, wow, I almost put my child in a difficult situation because I was just trying to figure it out like many others?
Absolutely. I can't see that I would have ever said yes to medication. It was so against my being, but I do coach with a lot of families who do medicate only because they don't have other answers and they don't know what else to do. And they're, for want of a better word, they're quite desperate. We were desperate for answers, but that was not our answer. And we had like, I can't tell you how many, over a 12-month period, we had like a handful of professionals say this child needs to be medicated, and we said thank you so much but no thank you, goodbye, and that was it. Like we just weren't prepared to take that path. But it was a difficult path for my husband and I as we explored what we needed to do and what we were doing right and what we were doing wrong. And it was challenging for all of us. Even my eldest son, who was prior to his younger brother coming along at 7.5, we had a happy and harmonious home. He was a cooperative kid, a quiet, a compliant kid, you know, just got on with life without any major challenges. And then along comes his brother. So he's our youngest son coming into our world was both a blessing and a challenge, you know, for all of us.
I'll get some of my exes and maybe they should be medicated. So do you know the name of this person that was suggesting it? Maybe we can give a couple of referrals. But
That's it.
when you're like when you and your husband at that time were going through it, how much strength was being pulled or maybe even tested in your relationship while dealing with that? Because it's probably something many couples go through.
Huge terrain. I am in the very fortunate situation that I have the most amazing, amazing husband. We have been together now for 35 or so years, married for 33 this year. And not once in my relationship with him has he raised his voice to me, not once. So we've been frustrated with each other. We've had, you know, differences of opinions, but he is an amazing, he still tells me every day he loves me, that I'm beautiful, that I'm amazing, that he's proud of me. So I was very, very lucky to have an amazing husband. In saying that, though, I coach with a lot of families who don't have that and who struggle, particularly the mums who struggle with either not having a partner, so they've separated, and they're dealing with a challenging situation on their own, or they have a partner, a male partner, who is not really very supportive. And particularly when we start delving into, you know, the challenges that have brought them to that point, and when I introduce the nurtured heart approach, which is very alternative way of communicating and relationshiping, and I'd love to share with your viewers a little bit more about that later. But a lot of men think, oh, that's just a tree hugging kind of thing. You know, we must discipline our children. We must have clear, you know, rules, and we must, you know, do all this sort of stuff. So men, no offense to the men, but men don't seem as open to change when it comes to parenting and relationships as the women. I'm sorry to say, in 25 years of experience, like probably 90% of my audience in 25 years are the women, are the mums or the female.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine the difficulty, especially if I give a male perspective, because our view is more rigid in a way, right? And it's more so like, okay, this isn't working. Okay, let me try this, but it's one and done. Right? And in your experience, you're probably like, okay, have you tried this? Okay, if this isn't working, can you tweak this and try this now? Okay, if this is part of, can you tweak that? Do you find that the reason for that is maybe lack of understanding, lack of flexibility, or is it just, I'm a man, I don't care, you do it?
Well, I think it's kind of a generational thing, because if you think of past generations, you know, we were parented in a certain way, and the male role model out of, you know, the male, the father figure was seen to be, the leader of the house, and I go out and earn the living. And even though things are different these days, even though often, both parents are working and both parents have equal, say in things, but I think a lot of men still hold on to that old paradigm of parenting. It is changing. I have got some beautiful dads in my current course who are working back to back with their partners and getting amazing results. I know for my husband, Terrain, he was a fairly conventional parent. His parents were English, kind of lovely people, but kind of quite strict and mainstream type of parents. And when he came into our relationship, already I had my little boy. He was 2 when my husband and I were together, and my husband had no idea about parenting. He was quite young. He's 5 years younger than me. But when we had these challenges with our son, and particularly when he hit adolescence, he said, I will do anything that anybody tells me to do to get me on track. We were so, I don't like to use the word desperate, but we so wanted to heal our relationships and to heal the trauma and the stress that had happened in our home over the years prior, that when we did find a parenting coach who we did align with, he said, just tell me what to do. I will follow your every instruction. And if the parenting coach said, do 100 push-ups every day, that's going to help your parenting, he would have done it. So he was I tell this story of, the dog sitting on the nail. And sometimes, have you heard that story? So it's not until the nail hurts enough that the person's going to get up off the nail. So I think for my husband, that's where we were at. Like, the nail was hurting immensely. It was affecting our relationship. It was affecting our relationship with our oldest son. We had no life because we couldn't go out. Our son was so challenging. And when we did go out, it was so stressful and traumatic. He was getting in trouble at school. We got multiple phone calls from the school, and he got in trouble with the police. He was doing things he shouldn't have, taking things he shouldn't have, hanging with kids he shouldn't have. Use your imagination. I'm talking about as a young teenager here. And so it was a really, really stressful situation. But in some ways, fortunately for us, instead of tearing us apart, it brought us closer together because we had a common goal of working on this together, which was fantastic. And I'm so grateful and blessed.
I wonder how much of that comes down to the shared determination between the two people, as well as the communication piece, because I'm pretty sure that you both are communicating, okay, we're in this together, how are we going to make this work, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the key. So if you are a couple listening in and you have challenges either in your relationship or your relationships with your children, I talk about getting back to back, because when you're back to back, nothing can get in between. When you're on the same page, when you have the same goals, when you have the same wants and desires for you, your relationship and your family, then if that is the desire that you want enough, you will do what it takes. And it sometimes just takes having that belief and then just attracting into your life a mentor or a coach who can help you to move forward. But I have had many, many instances where the mother has joined my course and has started getting results, and then dad started creeping in and listening in and thinking, okay, there's something in this. And then I've had some men who are now my biggest supporters and fans, because I've had men tell me, which is heartwarming, that Lillian, not only has this changed my relationship with my children, I'm now a better dad. My kids relate better to me, but I'm a better husband. I have a better relationship with my wife. I have better relationships with my children. The harmony in our home is beautiful. There is not that negative kind of feeling that we had in our home. And even taking outside the home, relationships with other people who you care about, and even with strangers, it helps you to communicate in a more positive and uplifting way. And I actually saw one of your posts. I was having a look on your Facebook page. I think it must have been your current mood it must have been your birthday coming up. And you said, I've written it down, feeling confident and determined to accomplish greatness. So that is exactly what I do in my parenting course. And I love that you use the word greatness, because we, through the Nurtured Heart approach, we look at building greatness within. So building greatness within the adults in the home, and then helping the adults to build greatness in their children.
And I wonder, and that's an amazing point you mentioned, and I wonder if one of the major stumbling blocks is ego. And the reason why I say that is if I feel, right, I'm tapping into my feelings now. If I feel that everything I'm doing is right, and the reason why my child or my wife, if I use you as an example, right, is not working is because it's not my fault. It's your fault because I'm perfect, right? I'm the man, I'm the woman, I am whomever. I'm God's gift to this earth, basically, right? And I would say for your husband to come into a situation where you have a child before him, I would say that takes courage because there's not many people that would want to be a step parent, right?
Correct.
And there's not a lot of parents that would say, okay, I'm going to fight for this. I want to make it through. Because many of the women that I date are older. So many of them are either separated, divorced, or they've had children, or they have a combination of that situation, right? Because women in the 40s these days, they have one of those too, a lot of them, right? So when I look at it and I think about it, they still have a sense of honor and duty because they're trying to make it work many times on their own, like you've mentioned. And now they want to introduce someone, and now they're trying to wear multiple hats, right? For the single mothers and the single fathers. They're Lillian, the woman, Lillian, the mother, Lillian, the wife, right? And that goes for the same thing for the single fathers out there too.
Yes.
How important was it for you to make sure that you were still balanced while juggling all these different versions of yourself to make sure that, hey, I got to be a mother, I got to be a wife, and I still have to be me?
Good question. Really good question. I probably didn't think about that too much when I was younger, but it is a really good question. And I think it's probably more common these days that relationships are coming out of that blended kind of situation. Either, the person has been married before, or they've been married and have children. My son is in his late 30s and he's still single because he goes, Mum, there's nobody out there that, and he wants to have children. So he's going to have to find a younger woman who still, can have children. So yeah, it is something that you have to work on. And I know from my husband's perspective, coming into a relationship, and he was very young. I was 20, just about to turn 28, and he was 23. So he's 5 years younger than me. So he came into our relationship very young, with knowing that he had a woman with a child. And we have talked about this in the past. And he realized that when he fell in love with me, that he had to fall in love with my package, which was me and my son. So, but there were a lot of things to juggle quite transparently, because I had an ex-husband who was extremely challenging and abusive, and we had to literally move home into like 4 hours away just to be far enough away from him, but still close enough so that he could access his son for visitation. So it was really challenging. And then it put on top of that, if you have a child who is a bit more demanding and challenging and intense, that really adds to it. And even for the most connected parents who were connected before this challenging child came along, it is a challenge to do all of those things, to be the parent, to be the partner, to be the lover, to be the friend, and to look and to have a healthy and beautiful and calm and cooperative home. I am so blessed because of the work that we've done, Terrain, that we now in our home, I'm fast forwarding the story, have 5 adults in our home. So myself and my husband, my 37-year-old son, my 30-year-old son, and my 30-year-old son's partner. She's 32. We all live in the house together beautifully and cooperatively and respectfully. The boys are away at the moment, so it's just Amy and I home. And we whoever's at the dinner table, it ends up being an hour and a half sitting at the dinner table, because we have these beautiful conversations with each other. But we have had to work on this, because particularly when our son was a young teenager, we felt that things were not destined to be where they are now. He actually said to us, I'm out of here as soon as I can be. Like, we thought he'd be out of home at 17, and here he is 30 and he's still at home. And he actually just went to a men's, like a 3-day men's retreat, like where they get men to really, look at themselves really deeply. And, it was quite confrontational, he said. He didn't share a lot of the intricacies, but as a mum and as the person I am, I asked him the question, so what was your biggest takeaway from the event? And he said, parenting. That the importance of having a great parent. He said, Mum, I was the only one there, and there were men there from their early 20s right into their 50s. I was the only one who felt they had a functional, positive and loving and connected relationship with their parents. He said the others all had stress and trauma that had come from parenting. And he said, Mum, I'm so grateful for the journey that we've had and the effort that you and Dad have made to be the best parent you can be. So as a 30-year-old coming home and saying that was pretty amazing.
For those who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, and my social media, please follow along and subscribe for more incredible interviews like the one we have with Lillian. And we will be back for more.